If life is a free fall from a skyscraper, the only guarantee is the pavement.
Right, yeah.
And, well, most philosophers try to hand you a parachute, or at least they, encourage you to enjoy the view on the way down. But Herman Tennessen, he, on the other hand, tells you to just look directly at the ground.
He really does.
Yeah, he famously declared that life is, quote, exactly like jumping from that skyscraper. There is no reason for joy, and the meeting with the ground is inevitable. So welcome to the deep dive, where today, for you listening, we are jumping right into the abyss.
It's honestly the ultimate philosophical cold shower.
Oh, totally.
We are plunging headfirst into a 2025 reissue of this almost forgotten Norwegian classic. It's a text titled Jeg velger sannheten, which translates to I choose the truth.
Right.
And it's basically a dialogue between two absolute titans of existential pessimism, Peter Wessel-Zafer and the brilliantly radical Herman Tennessen. Plus, it pulls in these counter-arguments from the renowned philosopher Arne Naess, and it's all capped off with a modern afterword by Inge Bostad.
Right. So the mission for this deep dive is to see what happens when you strip away like every single comforting illusion human beings have ever invented.
Exactly.
We want to find out if staring directly into the bleakest, most ruthless abyss imaginable somehow provides a shortcut to a surprisingly liberating and oddly humorous understanding of our own existence.
But, to get to that liberation, you really have to survive Tennessen's definition of truth first. Because choosing the truth sounds inherently noble.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're taught that honesty is the best policy.
Right, we are conditioned to view truth-telling as a virtue. But Tennessen draws this brutal line in the sand regarding what actually qualifies as truth. He vehemently despises what he calls snusvernuftig honesty.
Which roughly translates to like common sense or household honesty.
Right.
The kind of honesty where you balance your checkbook accurately, or you admit to a friend that you were running late because you overslept.
Yeah, and that kind of mundane honesty is actually worse than a lie to Tennessen, because it breeds this false sense of intellectual righteousness.
Yeah.
It's basically the honesty of making sure the deck chairs on the Titanic are perfectly aligned.
Wow, okay.
The truth Tennessen advocates for is a ruthless anti-natural interrogation. It is a relentless hunt to expose our deepest, most evolutionarily ingrained self-deceptions about our cosmic fate.
Right.
He demands we look at the absolute reality of our brief window of consciousness without blinking.
And he illustrates this cognitive dissonance with an allegory about two mayflies, right? The ones sheltering on a twig during a rainstorm.
Yes, the mayflies.
Because mayflies literally have a lifespan of a single day. So in his story, one mayfly is the quintessential optimist. This insect just wants to make the best of the remaining daylight, maybe, do some mating dances if the rain clears up, and focus entirely on the present moment.
Right. But the other mayfly, however, is just paralyzed by frustration. He is brooding on that twig, admitting to his companion that he deeply envies turtles and elephants simply because they possess a greater quantity of time.
And the optimistic mayfly looks at the brooding one like he's insane.
Exactly.
The optimist argues that existence is about the quality of the day, the richness of the experience, not the sheer quantity of seconds ticking on a clock.
But the brooding mayfly just cannot shake the cosmic injustice of his architecture. And Tennyson uses this to hold a mirror up to our own human rationalizations.
How so?
Well, from a cosmic perspective, a human lifespan of 80 years and a mayfly lifespan of 24 hours are mathematically indistinguishable from zero.
Oh, wow.
We are the optimistic mayfly. We pretend that a few extra decades on a spinning rock somehow fundamentally change the absolute equation of our eventual non-existence.
It's like watching a movie that for an absolute fact has a fiery, miserable ending.
Yes, perfect analogy.
Instead of just eating your popcorn and enjoying the plot twists or the cinematography while the film is rolling, Tennyson's approach is to stubbornly stare at the glowing red exit sign at the back of the theater, just refusing to pretend the screen isn't going to go dark.
That glowing red exit sign is the perfect visual, but Tennyson takes it a step further. It isn't just that the movie ends. It's the vocabulary we use to describe the moviegoers themselves.
What do you mean?
Realizing the building is on fire forces us to change how we label our own biology. Tennyson realized that calling a human being mortal is actually a massive, comforting lie we tell ourselves.
Because mortal implies a capacity, not a guarantee.
Exactly.
Like if a building is structurally vulnerable to fire, it might burn down, but doesn't have to if a spark never catches.
Right. Humans aren't just mortal. We are, in Tennyson's specific terminology, moribund. We are actively dying.
Right.
From the exact moment of conception, the cellular clock begins a countdown that just cannot be paused. We are condemned to death without pardon, placed on an irreversible track to the biological scrapyard.
Condemned to death without pardon. That is heavy.
Treating death as an anomaly or like an eventual possibility is a failure of logic. It is the only guaranteed outcome of birth.
But, I mean, push back on this for a second. Look around. Evolution clearly works.
Sure.
We built skyscrapers. We mapped the human genome. We created global civilizations. Our biology keeps the species going with incredible efficiency. Tennyson is looking at the greatest biological continuity engine in the known universe and calling it a tragedy.
Yeah, he is.
That logic doesn't hold up for me. If the outcome is a fixed drop to the pavement, why do we fight so insanely hard to build the skyscraper in the first place?
Well, it holds up perfectly if you separate the biological machinery from the intellect trapped inside it. Tennyson found his answer to our relentless drive in Richard Dawkins' concept of the selfish gene.
Oh, the selfish gene.
Right. Tennyson realized our fundamental programming is geneotropic-oriented entirely toward the replication of genes. The genes are the true architects, the replicators. They view human bodies merely as disposable survival machines.
So from the gene's perspective, my body, my personality, my entire sense of self is just a temporary rental car it's using to drive to the next generation.
Yes. And once the rental car has delivered the genetic payload, it is economically inefficient for the replicator to keep maintaining it.
That is brutal.
A brilliant example Tennyson uses is the Pacific salmon. The salmon swims upstream, exhausts itself to spawn, and then its body produces a massive systemic surge of a death hormone.
Wait, really? A death hormone?
Yeah, it ages rapidly and literally rots alive in the river immediately after reproducing.
So that isn't an accident or a disease? That rapid decay is an evolutionary feature?
It is the pinnacle of genetic engineering. Discarding the survival machine prevents the parent from competing with its own offspring for limited ecological resources.
Wow.
Humans are just a slightly more neurologically complex version of that rotting salmon. We are biologically mandated to age, degrade, and be discarded to clear the stage for the next iteration of survival machines.
But wait, we aren't just salmon. We don't just spawn and die. We write symphonies, we study astrophysics. Where does that fit into a disposable rental car?
That is what Tennyson calls the memeotropic rebellion. Humans develop something no other survival machine possesses: memes.
Like, not internet jokes, obviously.
Yeah, not internet jokes, but cultural and intellectual heritage. Our accumulated knowledge, our consciousness.
Our ability to wonder why the universe is expanding.
Exactly. Our memeotropic side, our intellect, demands unlimited time. It requires eternity to explore, to learn, to read every book, and solve every equation.
Right.
But our geneotropic side, our biological hardware, imposes a strict, unavoidable expiration date. For Tennyson, this cycle of endless birth and death is an extravagant, sloppy, agonizing waste.
Because it just resets.
Right. Every time a brilliant human mind dies, an entire universe of accumulated insight is erased, simply because the selfish genes needed to refresh the biological hardware.
So we are essentially caught in a hostage situation. Our genes want us to breed and die, but our minds desperately want to live and understand.
Exactly. Right now, Tennyson classifies us as Homo ephemeralis creatures tethered to a fixed, fleeting lifespan.
Okay.
His only hope is a distant future, where we use scientific intervention, like manipulating our own DNA, to shut off the aging genes entirely.
Like biohacking our own evolution.
Yeah, he envisions the artificial creation of Homo diuturnalis, a being that has overthrown its genetic masters. A being that can actually choose to step off the samsara carousel of endless, pointless biological recycling.
I mean, if I really internalize this dying salmon biology, I should be paralyzed with fear right now.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm not. You and I are sitting here having a calm conversation. We're probably both thinking about what we're going to have for lunch later. Our brains must have a built-in cognitive shock absorber for this realization, because if we didn't, we wouldn't be able to function.
Tennyson completely agrees, and he provocatively redefines the word euthanasia to describe that exact shock absorber.
Wait, euthanasia, like medically?
No, he isn't talking about a medical procedure at the end of life. Cultural euthanasia is any mechanism we deploy to numb the profound, suffocating dread of nothingness, our impending non-being.
So we invent illusions of meaning to act as a localized anesthetic on our brains.
Exactly. Religion is the most obvious one, which he dismisses as a transparent psychological defense mechanism. But he casts a much wider net.
What else counts as euthanasia?
He targets our societal obsession with workaholism, our frantic pursuit of extreme sports, or even the mundane desperation of constantly having the television running in the background while we do crossword puzzles.
We are terrified of silence because silence is when the reality of the skyscraper drop creeps in.
Yes. And he references a deeply unsettling experiment conducted on goats at Stanford to illustrate the mechanics of this dread.
Oh no, what happened to the goats?
Researchers surgically removed specific portions of brain tissue in goats that were responsible for the cognitive capacity of anticipation. When those altered goats were later given an electric shock, they physically felt the pain in the moment, but they exhibited absolutely zero paralyzing anxiety or dread before the shock was administered.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they couldn't simulate the future, so the future couldn't terrorize them.
Wow, so by obsessing over our careers or hyper-focusing on our hobbies, we are essentially trying to surgically alter our own frontal lobes. We are actively blinding our capacity for anticipation so that our eventual annihilation just sneaks up on us unawares. We are desperate to be the goats.
We engineer our own ignorance, and the most insidious tool we use to administer this euthanasia is the very language we speak.
Language itself, like why is the language we use complicit in this? Think about the linguistic gymnastics we perform when someone dies. Our immediate instinct is to say, you know, they're in a better place, or it's a blessing, their suffering is finally over.
Right, and Tennyson identifies this as a massive linguistic fraud.
Yeah.
Our grammatical structures are fundamentally genotropic. Language evolved to help tribal survival machines coordinate hunts and cope with grief. It did not evolve to accurately describe objective cosmic reality.
Right, it's a survival tool.
Because of this, our language constantly tricks us into treating nothingness as if it were a physical location.
Like our subject-verb-object grammar forces us to invent a room for the dead person to walk into.
Exactly. It creates a logical fallacy that is impossible to untangle. You cannot objectively state that it is better for someone to be dead because the person who would theoretically experience that better state no longer exists to compare it to anything.
Right.
The subject is erased. There is no them for the situation to be better for.
That completely exposes the flaw in romanticizing death entirely.
It does. Tennyson even levels this critique at the great poets. He takes direct aim at Dylan Thomas and his legendary line, "Do not go gentle into that good night."
Oh, wow. Taking on Dylan Thomas.
Yeah, he views that beautiful poetry as a total intellectual failure. Calling death a good night gives it a texture, gives it a temperature and a presence. But death isn't a dark, quiet night. It is the absolute absence of everything. It is a void that language physically cannot map.
Listening to Tennyson systematically dismantle every single psychological defense mechanism we have is suffocating. I mean, it leaves you with absolutely nowhere to hide.
It really does.
But thankfully, the text introduces a powerful counterweight here. Arne Naess, another giant of Norwegian philosophy, steps in and attempts to rescue the value of human experience from Tennyson's cosmic shredder. Naess forces us to look at the undeniable reality of the now.
Right, Naess targets Tennyson's core assumption, the idea that an inevitable destruction retroactively renders a journey meaningless.
And Naess uses this incredibly visceral example of a worker inside an ammunition factory, doesn't he?
He does. Imagine a person taking a break on the floor of this ammunition factory. For a fleeting moment, they lean over and kiss their fiancée while a piece of beautiful music plays on a radio in the background. It is a moment of pure, profound, undeniable human connection. But a split second later, a spark ignites, the factory detonates, and everyone is instantly annihilated.
So Naess is arguing that meaning is combustible. That kiss in the factory is a chemical and emotional reaction that creates intense heat and light in that exact microsecond.
Yes.
The fact that the factory explodes a second later doesn't rewrite the laws of physics and extinguish the heat that already occurred. The meaning was generated. The annihilation doesn't travel back in time to make the kiss fake. It's kind of like saying a delicious Michelin star meal was entirely pointless just because your plate is empty at the end of the night.
That is a great way to put it, and that is Naess's defense. He suggests that even while staring down the barrel of ultimate absurdity, a human being can generate meaning by choosing to live with dignity.
But Tennyson's rebuttal in the postlude of the book is utterly merciless.
Oh, it was brutal.
He refuses to grant Naess an inch of ground on the concept of dignity.
Yeah, Tennyson examines the concept of dignity sub specie mortis under the gaze of death, from the absolute perspective of the grave. From that vantage point, he argues, human dignity is a laughable metric.
He literally builds a ledger of life's accomplishments, right?
Yes.
And he groups living a dignified life right alongside, like having an indoor water closet, enjoying a delicious cream puff, and managing to go through life without getting warts.
It sounds absurd, but his logic is actually impenetrable.
Hmm.
Once the survival machine is discarded and the consciousness is erased, the qualitative data of that life evaporates.
Right, it's all gone.
Whether your life was a masterclass in stoic, noble dignity, or whether you spent 80 years screaming in agony from a kidney stone, the final result is zero. The dead do not care how they lived. The universe does not keep a scorecard of your bravery.
Matt, so if finding dignity within the natural order is mathematically irrelevant, Tennyson basically pivots and turns his sights on nature itself.
He does.
He reaches this highly unconventional conclusion that flips our modern sensibilities completely upside down. He adopts the provocative motto, Ned, med natrin, down with nature.
Right, because we are conditioned by modern environmentalism to worship the natural order. We view nature as a perfectly balanced, beautiful system that we are tragically disrupting.
But Tennyson looks at the food chain and sees a moral abomination.
Exactly. He points out the staggering hypocrisy of our worldview. Imagine if a human architect intentionally designed a closed biological system where thousands of news are slowly, agonizingly ripped to shreds while still conscious by attacks of hyenas.
Or a system where millions of insects are trapped and slowly digested alive by carnivorous plants.
Right. If a human being engineered that exact ecosystem in a laboratory, we would lock them up. We would view them as a psychopath, a morally bankrupt monster worse than any historical dictator.
Totally.
Yet because this torture chamber evolved organically, we paint it in watercolors and call it the beautiful circle of life. Tennyson argues that nature is the ultimate enemy of the mimeotropic mind. We shouldn't protect it. We should actively rebel against it. We should embrace genetic engineering, overwrite our biological programming, and stop worshiping a meat grinder built on cyclical slaughter.
You hear all of this, the skyscraper drop, the rotting salmon, the rejection of meaning, the declaration of war against nature itself, and you naturally picture Herman Tennessen and Peter Wessel-Zapfe as these miserable, weeping figures.
Oh, for sure.
Like they're just sitting in a pitch-black room, paralyzed by their own philosophy. But the afterword by Inga Bostad reveals the most brilliant paradox of this entire deep dive.
Yeah, they weren't miserable at all. Despite possessing the darkest, most aggressively pessimistic worldview ever committed to paper, they were joyful.
Right.
They were witty, deeply caring friends who thoroughly enjoyed their existence.
There is an incredible anecdote about Tennyson's daughter. He raised her as a strict atheist, completely immersed in his worldview. And they're traveling together, and she opens the curtains of their hotel room to see the majestic, awe-inspiring architecture of the Cologne Cathedral towering into the sky.
I love this story.
And she turns to her radically pessimistic father and says, "Dad, there must be something to it."
And Tennyson absolutely loved that. He delighted in the absurdity of the human condition. When you read the preserved letters between these philosophers, they are overflowing with warmth.
Yeah, they playfully debated over who was actually the most pessimistic, treating it like a game.
Exactly. Tennyson would even sign off his letters to Zapfe by drawing a little heart with an arrow shot through it.
That is amazing. It proves that staring into the abyss doesn't mandate misery. His ability to appreciate the humor in his own bleak philosophy is the very mechanism that made it bearable.
It reveals a profound psychological reality that applies directly to anyone listening right now. You are likely feeling a natural instinct to reject everything we've just discussed.
Yeah, I felt it too.
That discomfort is your biological euthanasia kicking in, desperately trying to protect your survival machine from a truth it wasn't built to handle. We are constantly suffocated by societal pressures to find our purpose, to make a lasting mark on the world, to ensure our lives are profoundly meaningful.
Right, the pressure is immense.
But Tennyson's perspective offers an incredibly strange, potent relief. When you finally accept that the universe demands absolutely nothing of you, that your grandest successes and your most humiliating failures will all ultimately equal zero, it removes the crushing weight of cosmic expectation.
You can just let it go.
Exactly. You can drop the heavy burden of significance and just appreciate the absurdity of a cream puff or a beautiful piece of music without demanding that it echo into eternity.
So to wrap up, we've explored Tennyson's radical honesty, how our genes trick us, the ways we use culture as a numbing agent, and the liberating idea that rejecting the natural order might be the ultimate intellectual rebellion.
It's a lot to process.
It really is. So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought built on the architecture of this philosophy. We discussed how language is a genetic trick, a tool specifically designed by evolution to blind us to the terrifying reality of nothingness. If that is true, then every single time we try to articulate the meaning of life or search for a higher purpose, we are using a tool specifically built by our biology to lie to us.
That is a mind-bending thought.
So here is the challenge. Can you ever truly think outside of your biological programming if the very words you used to think are designed to keep you trapped inside it? If life is a drop from a skyscraper, is our language just the sound of the wind rushing past our ears, whispering sweet lies to convince us we're actually flying? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.